Hey, what's up guys? It's Psych-E here today, and I'm going to be making some light malt extract agar. Very excited, I love making this agar, super simple recipe. I'm going to divide it into two mason jars. Usually my recipe calls for 500 milliliters of water, 15 grams of light malt extract, and 10 grams, I believe, of agar powder. My apologies. And so I'm going to be dividing that into two, so each jar is going to get 250 milliliters of water. Each jar is going to get 7.5 grams of light malt extract, and each jar is going to get 5 grams of agar powder. And I typically like to start measuring out my agar because the light malt extract tends to clump as soon as I expose it to like moisture or air. So I keep it in the bottle for as long as I can. Another way I've gone around that is I boil my water prior. So right now I've got water in a kettle. I have 500 milliliters of water in a kettle boiling. And while that's going on, I'm just going to take the time to measure out the ingredients. So we're going to start by doing 5 grams of the agar powder. And I'm going to set that off to the side. And once we are done with that, I'm going to go ahead and do the light malt extract. Now, I've only grabbed those 2 cups, so I'm just going to reuse them once I'm done pouring in the first jar. And there we go. That's going to be 7.5 grams of the light malt extract. Making sure to shut the bottle as soon as possible. And then I've got my 2 jars. I think my water's ready, so I'm going to go and grab that, and I will catch you in a sec.
And this is what I meant earlier by like it clogs. So as soon as it gets like wet or touches, see how it like does this weird clumping up, and that like in the water usually doesn't disperse very well. So I'm gonna go ahead. This one's done. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my second jar, weigh out the rest of this, and yeah, fill it up. I think I'm gonna do some food coloring as well, just to do different color agars.
Okay, so I went ahead and did the first jar upstairs. I was trying to film it, but my camera angle was kind of off. So I just came back down to the lab, I guess, and just weighing out my ingredients again. So I've got my water, brought everything down, and I like to start with a light malt extract because I like to not leave it, again, exposed to air for any long period of time. So we're going to start with that. I'm going to give it a nice little swirl. And yeah, so the way I usually like to do this is I give it a nice little swirl consistently with my right hand, and I will slowly start pouring the light malt extract. And usually when I do that, it doesn't tend to clump up. And make sure I get everything in there. So give it a nice couple of swirls. Again, the water's almost boiling hot, so it really helps. And the agar typically doesn't have any issue. It usually goes down pretty quickly and disperses pretty well. But yeah, just a nice little smooth swirl. Make sure everything is good, and then I'm going to grab my my lids. So let me grab those. And typically I like to do small mouth mason jars when I do agar, but unfortunately right now I did not have any on hand, so I was forced to go with the wide mouths. For the food coloring, I went ahead and tried this new one that I've never tried before, so I'm not really sure how it's going to turn out. It's like 100% like sugar based, so I don't think it's going to like interfere with agar. I guess we'll see in the future. But I really liked the color, and I also have some orange as well, some like orange sunset. Okay, you might have seen in the last frame as well, I always like to wipe the top of the lip of the jars because that's like the only area that could potentially have contamination, like not being able to get reached by the heat, the steam, or whatnot when we pressure cook. And speaking of that, I just kind of realized that I had some grain jars that I pressure cooked last night, which is something I kind of like to do because I know that when my agar is cooling, which I will explain a little bit later, I have kind of like a 2-hour window of just kind of like waiting around. So I kind of like to have something to do in between. And I set up myself right now so I could do a little bit of a pink oyster transfers. My blue oysters are doing very well. My lion's mains are doing very well as well. Yellow oysters are doing very well. I just needed to kind of increase my network for my pink oysters. So I'm going to empty that pressure cooker to make room for the agar. It's got to cook for 40 minutes at 15 psi. So the total time it takes about, an hour. It takes maybe like 20 minutes to get to speed, and then the speed to psi, and then 40 minutes.
Make sure I loosen up the lid just a little bit, so if there's any pressure, like it won't burst open the jar. So you just make sure there's a little bit of room. So this, and we're gonna go ahead and the pressure cooker. Same thing for this. There's a little wiggle room. Gonna fill this up to about up to 300 grams. And that should be good. Okay, so we're getting the heat started, and we're gonna have it go at 15 psi for 40 minutes. So, yep, catch you in a second.
Alright, and while that is getting to 15 psi, I'm going to use that time to knock out those pink oyster cultures. I grabbed 2 jars. The first jar that I grabbed was nice and ready to get transferred. The second one was a bit older, and then it looked like it was starting to kind of pin, so I'm going to save that one for substrate. And I grabbed just another jar that was a little bit behind as well and ready for transfers. So manage to finish those jars, make sure everything is shaken up through, and label as usual.
Alright, I'm gonna see if I can do a little bit of audio. So unfortunately I listened to the footage and everything, and the audio sounds kinda like crap because of the flow hood going on, and I also had some music in the background, so I realized I'm gonna have to do a voiceover for pretty much everything. Hopefully maybe this section I can keep it like this. But yeah, so I'm going to just get my area prepped. My agar has been cooked for 40 minutes at 15 psi. As soon as I hit 15 psi, I started my timer, let it go for 40 minutes, and then as soon as that hit the mark, turned it off, and I set another timer for 2 hours. And right now I'm about 5 to 10 minutes away from that timer being done. That's just to let the agar cool so I can handle it and pour my plates. So in that 10-minute window, I'm gonna go ahead and just set up my area. So I've got my cups right here. Cleaned out everything. Make sure to just sanitize everything. These are alright. I like to use them for agar, but I feel like sometimes they get contaminated. Maybe it's because I don't pour as well. Maybe, I don't know. There's a couple different factors. They stay open for a little bit. Maybe the flow hood doesn't quite get everything. Maybe they're not quite as clean, the lids, I don't know. So because it's not a sterile packaging, and they haven't been sterilized or anything. So sometimes I do get I want to say 10% of my plates do get contamination when I use these. But I'm gonna start my flow hood, let that go for about 10-15 minutes, and then I'm going to lay down all the cups and start pouring the agar. So I'll catch you guys with a time lapse on that. Gonna go grab everything.
So my pressure cooker is cool enough to handle. It's been 2 hours. I'm going to grab my first jar, make sure I spray everything down with rubbing alcohol. And I always like to pour from like furthest from me to me, so that way I'm never working in front of my cultures and like interrupting the flow of that the hood is pushing forward. I'm never in between that and my cultures, so it can never like hit my hand. And I'm gonna cap them the same way as well. So we start off with the black agar, and then we're gonna go with the orange sunset. Again, keeping that same motion, just trying to never work in front of the airflow and in between like the cup. So it looks like I misblended a little bit, 1 cup short, but it's alright. And again, same thing with the capping. We are gonna start from closest to me and go forward, so that way, again, we're never interrupting that airflow. Thank you for watching. I'm not sure why I made an agar update video. I guess I was just having fun and I just wanted to record it. I am also working on my Grow Room 3 footage, so I promise that will be out soon. If you like the content, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment. Catch you guys in the next one. Psych-E, out.